And meanwhile, this guy gets inside the White House, and turns out yesterday, before the head of the Secret Service this morning is testifying before Congress, and no doubt being roundly grilled. But this guy got a lot deeper into the White House than we knew. We had Abraham Bolden on this program back, it was 6-8 months ago, I think. Lamar Waldron and I have a petition over at the White House site asking for a pardon for him. He was the first black Secret Service agent in a presidential detail. He was in Kennedy's detail. And he went to the Secret Service to report that the Secret Service guys were just getting plastered and hanging out with hookers and whatnot. And they threw him in jail. They framed him and got rid of him. And so anyhow, he's still alive and he's still around, and we're trying to get him pardoned. But this apparently, the Secret Service has this long history of this. There's all these instances in the 60s that were well documented during the Kennedy administration. And now what's going on in the Obama administration. Dan Bongino's on the line with us. He is himself a former Secret Service agent. He is now a candidate for Congress, a Republican from Maryland in the 6th District, and the author of the book Life Inside the Bubble. His website is bongino.com, Bongino. Dan, welcome back to the program.
Always good to be with you, Tom.
Thank you. Pardon me, I coughing here. As a Secret Service agent, what are your thoughts, as a former Secret Service agent, what are your thoughts on what happened, and B, the media circus and the instant politicization of this?
Yeah, there's always going to be politics, and that's kind of sad. I think you may see on the Democrat side making a budget issue, and on the Republican side making it an Obama administration issue, and neither one of those is accurate from my experience. Matter of fact, I couldn't be further.
Well, these are career employees, are they not? They're not. These are not political appointees.
The Secret Service director is a political appointee, but the agents and the people beneath the Secret Service director in the hierarchy there are career employees. That's right. But there are political appointments down below, not for the position, but within that senior executive service rank.
Yeah. So when you were in the Secret Service, were you ever assigned to the White House?
Yeah, 5 years. And the plan at the White House, Tom, the security plan is multi-layered, very complicated, takes a very long time and training to get down, so you act out of instinct and not you don't have to think anything through. And that's why it's so shocking to me and the network of agents I keep in contact with that not only one or two of the countermeasures failed, but multiple. I mean, I want to get into specific numbers, but a number of things failed at the same time.
Yeah, I understand. It's at least 4 or 5, including the alarm inside the White House that an intruder has breached the White House had been turned off because one of the people not affiliated with the Secret Service didn't like the noise?
Yeah, and this is a shame, Tom. And this has been through multiple administrations, Republican, Democrat. You have this influence, undue influence by the staff. The Secret Service does not have a co-equal role at the table, and they should. And they'll tell you otherwise publicly, but it's not true. They frequently have to subordinate decision-making to the staff when it comes to things like that. Well, the alarm's too loud. It may wake up the first family. That's the point. Things like this would happen all the time. And the Secret Service needs stronger upper level. There's a small insulated group of managers out there that I don't know if they're working their networks, looking for another job, but they throw these guys under the bus every day who make these suggestions and say things like, hey, why are we turning that alarm off? That doesn't make a lot of sense. The guys know that. And the women who work there, they know this is, there were some problems there, and they're just hushed by management. It's a shame.
One of the things that we've seen a lot of, we're talking Dan Bongino, Republican candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives from the 6th District of Maryland, and a former Secret Service agent, and a regular on our TV show, a good guy. Dan, if you look at the FDA, if you look at the Fed, or at least the part of the Fed that's responsible for enforcement of banking laws, if you look at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, if you look at the Department of Energy's regulatory arm, the people who are regulating the nuclear industry, if you look at the Bureau of Land Management, I could give you a long list of agencies where there are just such clear examples of regulatory capture, where the people at particularly the senior levels of these agencies are not working for the benefit of the people of the United States. They're working for the benefit of corporate interests with a relatively, and you see this in the Pentagon all the time. Virtually every general you see on TV talking about some weapon system is a consultant and a $200,000-$400,000 a year consultant, and sometimes a hell of a lot more, to one of these giant weapon companies, and they don't disclose this on cable TV when they go on. The Secret Service? Could it be that the people at the high levels of the Secret Service is the same thing? Not necessarily regulatory capture because they don't regulate, but the revolving door.
Right.
One of these guys wants to end up running Blackwater.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I gave a long speech on this at Heritage, and this is ironically one of those areas where, the far left, the Occupy crowd, and the far right Tea Party crowd are equally upset. Regulatory capture is a huge problem, and although you're right, but by law they don't technically regulate, there is this internal carousel. And I'll give you an example. Here's what I mean. Like, say within the Secret Service, you have these upper-level managers, and they get a call from a big bank that says, hey, listen, we want you to investigate our cases here, our fraud cases. These are really important. Is there a de facto trade-off there if that boss decides, that manager within the office says, we'll work these cases, but we won't, say we'll work Chase but not Wells Fargo? Of course, later on, you don't think Chase remembers that? Why do you think a lot of these guys get hired when they leave? So are they regulating? Yeah, by default they are, because they're regulating what? Taxably free to the big banks, not free to the general public. The free security force that gets to serve as at the pleasure of almost the banks who have the most influence with that manager, and then the payback becomes later. And this is one of those limited, unfortunately, areas where I think we can find some political ground that this has got to stop. The regulatory capture and these little, quid pro quo deals are absolutely killing the average American who has no voice in this at all. I mean, good luck getting your cases work in the federal government if you don't have that kind of, sway with air quotes there.
Yeah. And we used to have, in the part of the Nixon reforms in 73 and 74 after the Church Commission were some pretty aggressive regulations that stopped revolving doors. My recollection is that many of them were legislated or sunset out of existence. I don't know if the Supreme Court, like they did with money in politics, if the Supreme Court said it's okay. Do you know?
I don't remember, but Tom, there's some simple solutions to this. I mean, it's not brain surgery here. We should have 10-year bans on working in any industry if you're a federal government employee that's either regulated or responsible for law enforcement in some component of that industry. I mean, you don't want lifetime bans, but 10-year bans, by that time, your so-called friends on the inside have probably left as well, and your influence is waned. But there's arbitrage of that as well. They hire them as business developers instead of lobbyists. But, we're not trying to eliminate. You're never going to eliminate the problems. You can only try to minimize them, and I think that would go a long way.
I agree. Dan Bongino, his website, bongino.com. Thanks, Dan.
Always a pleasure, Tom. Thank you.